Anyone who disagrees with this government gets pushed aside.
The meltdown is happening. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today's top story here, we've got one of Trudeau's trusted advisors, one of his wedding party buddies, telling us that he's going to step down. We've also got a Liberal backbencher going nuclear on Justin Trudeau, ripping him a new one. And we've got the CRA breaking the law. Let's jump into this. First up here, this is some pretty bombshell news. A Canadian tax agency will be collecting taxes that haven't become law yet. We're talking about the CRA, and we're talking about the capital gains increase. So Chrystia Freeland's increase here from 50 to 66% inclusion rate for capital gains, which hasn't gone into law because the House has been locked down with all the SDTC scandal. Well, the CRA doesn't care, and they're just going to be charging those higher rates because they want to steal Canadian tax dollars. I use those words carefully. Steal is the word, because this isn't law, this is illegal. As it says here, there's only one problem: the new tax rate isn't actually in effect yet. The Canada Revenue Agency yesterday would not comment on warnings. It will enforce the $17.4 billion increase in capital gains taxes through the measure never passed Parliament. An agency manager publicly stated auditors will continue to administer the proposed legislation as if it was law. I'm sorry, isn't this a jailable offense? The CRA is Canada's version of IRS, and they've done this before, prompting a former Liberal MP to observe that the CRA cannot bypass Parliament, which hasn't enacted the new rate yet. Parliament is supreme. Parliament is above Cabinet. It is above the Department of Finance. We can't allow that to be undermined. Undermining Parliament indeed. The CRA is forging ahead because of Trudeau's Cabinet was counting on its share of higher capital gains taxes to cover a portion of this year's deficit. Unbelievable.
We have to know that a large percentage of small businesses are actually just ways for wealthier Canadians to save on their taxes.
How many roof installers or landscapers cheat? Next up, we got this one from Global News. Says Canada's parties brace for likely federal election.
The pressure isn't letting up on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, with yet another voice within his own party demanding his resignation. Calgary Liberal MP George Chahal has joined public calls for change, publishing a letter that doesn't mince words about how he's had enough of Trudeau's leadership. Mackenzie Gray joins us now from Ottawa. Mackenzie, what's Chahal saying?
Well, he is absolutely eviscerating the Prime Minister, Anne, in a letter Chahal sent to his caucus colleagues that he is now sharing publicly. Any rational individual in a position of leadership would resign, Chahal said. Any group of individuals providing advice based on data and logic would reach the same conclusion. Unfortunately, a small cabal have decided to pursue a reckless strategy of mutually assured political destruction.
This is hilarious coming from George Chahal because he's such a crumb snatcher. Now he's pulling out the daggers here on Trudeau. They're all turning on each other. This is just very comical to watch.
Leading to one of the most pointed calls from a Liberal parliamentarian yet. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau no longer has the support of caucus, and to maintain some dignity, he should immediately tender his resignation.
I believe George Chahal is only one of two Liberals in Alberta, the other being Randy Bousnout. I guess that you could count that as three if you include the other Randy.
The Prime Minister said to be reflecting on his political future while vacationing in BC, but Chahal doesn't want to wait for Trudeau, writing to the Liberal Party president, saying, "I would urge the Liberal Party of Canada board to immediately plan for a leadership race, regardless of the Prime Minister's formal resignation."
So he doesn't wait for Trudeau's ski vacations, plural? Where's he at now? Is he a big white silver star?
The current Liberal Party constitution says a leadership race must be a minimum of 90 days, time the party might not have, Anne. With an election, they could be forced by the opposition within months.
They're not going to get those 90 days unless Trudeau prorogues the government and then buys them 90 days. He can prorogue all the way until October because they only have to have one sitting day in the House per year. And so that would easily take them to the 20th of October. That would be absolutely goofy to do that. But maybe Trudeau wants to do that just to take advantage of all his security and the private jet and just fly around and spend our money and have a good time until he's out of office. I can't really see the guy doing a favor for the Liberals and giving time for them to have a leadership race and all that. Like, he doesn't care about the Liberal Party. He only cares about himself.
Yeah, we are heading for a federal election with polls showing most Canadians now favor casting a ballot early in 2025. Could this topple the Liberals?
Canadians have wanted an election for a long time, not just right now. It's been over a year and a half.
Well, it certainly could, Anne, and that's what the Conservatives are hoping for, with their plan to bring a non-confidence motion at the committee level in early January to try and bring the government down. And the NDP are saying they will vote with the Conservatives, which would be the first time post-supply and confidence agreement that the NDP wouldn't back the Liberals. But the New Democrats seem to think it might not actually lead to an election.
150.
Referencing back to this vote in 2005, despite losing a non-confidence motion in the House of Commons, brought forward from a committee, Paul Martin's Liberals deemed they didn't actually need to ask for an election, and his government continued. Now, the Conservatives had told Global News they plan to structure this motion to make sure the government will fall, but none of this might actually matter, Anne, if the Prime Minister quits.
If the Prime Minister quits early enough here, does that mean Jagmeet won't get his pension either? I mentioned this in a previous video. He can pick another riding because his riding in Burnaby South has split up, so likely Jagmeet will pick a winner of a riding and still get that pension, sadly, but this is just a big clown show at this point.
That scenario, he's likely to prorogue Parliament, shutting down the Commons to allow for a leadership race, meaning votes like this and any other confidence motions could actually be months away.
If the confidence motion goes in on January 27th, will Jagmeet Singh support it, or will he wait until he puts in a confidence motion, then he can say he took down Justin Trudeau? It's hard to know where his head's at. Is he going to do it for that ego and that clout and think that's going to get him a pump up in the polls, or will he actually support that motion and take down the government? Time will tell here. He's not going anywhere. He has to fulfill his WF duties and leave us all with nothing so he can apparently be happy. He will never resign. Too arrogant. Don't trust the NDP. Yeah, I agree with that. The question is, what will the WF instruct Trudeau and Singh to do? That is the question. Can't be soon enough. He's terrible, unqualified, and unstable, mentally ill. The entire party should be put in prison. Next up, we've got quite the interesting clip here of Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau. Just listen to what she says about his name and the job he currently holds.
Sadly, that is less and less the case. It's increasingly the case that your job prospects are correlated not with how hard you work, not with how well you do in school, but with the job that your father had. And that's not Canada.
Okay, we can't have that music playing, but that's hilarious. And Chrystia Freeland has been wearing the same red dress for a decade. She has. It's 50-50 last name in China. Yeah, that comment there sums it up. He needed both to get the job. Sadly, Singh is the only name that gets to decide if he stays. And help from foreign interference. Yeah, China is definitely involved. Next up here, it says the West Shore Terminal near Delta Port. This can't be good for Canada. This looks like the machine that offloads shipping containers off of big ships. This can't be good for Canada. Wonder the impact on coal exports. So maybe this is just for coal, I'm not sure. Next up, we got a beauty of a clip here posted on Pierre Poilievre's account. Congratulations to Pierre Poilievre here, 500,000 subscribers he's just hit. Considering Justin Trudeau is very much on the eve of prorogating here, this is a fun watch.
2 prorogations in 2 years. The first to avoid a vote of non-confidence that would have surely brought this government down. The second, to avoid difficult questions. Anyone who disagrees with this government gets pushed aside. The challenge becomes that he gets to use every tribune he can use. All the media, all the voices, all the attention, and gets to further marginalize people who disagree with him. That's why we're talking about prorogation today.
Are we still talking about prorogation today, Trudeau? Not to mention prorogating twice. Sounds like he's talking about himself. Justin is bar none the worst PM we've ever had. Look at this, 1,000 thumbs up. Two-faced liar, hypocrite, perfectly described himself. Canada's in crisis, Canadians are suffering, and Trudeau is on holiday again without a care in the world. Trudeau speaking on Trudeau now, this guy makes my skin crawl. Next up on CTV here, they got Scott Reid giving Rita land here. And apparently Gerald Butts, Justin Trudeau's wedding party buddy, says he's going to step down.
Well, we might be getting a hint of the Prime Minister's next steps into the political unknown, this time from a close friend and confidant who says Justin Trudeau may not be the leader of the Liberals for much longer. The PM's former chief advisor, Gerald Butts, says Trudeau is reeling from a staggering blow after the resignation of longtime ally Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Butts says Trudeau stepping down would lead to a potential election sooner rather than later, with the Conservatives winning a majority.
So something to note about Chrystia Freeland is Justin Trudeau heard her speaking at an event and he was so impressed. He went and then recruited her, and it took him a while to actually get her to agree to run as a member of the Liberals. So Trudeau was chasing her. The fact that he fired her from her position, it makes a lot of sense why there's bad blood now between the two of them.
If that election were to happen right now, according to Canada 338, it would be devastating for the Liberals. It shows not only will they lose, but possibly drop to third place. Here's what the numbers look like if the election were held today. The Conservatives, 232 seats, supermajority. The Bloc Québécois, the official opposition, with 45. Liberals at 39, NDP 25. Well, the Conservatives say they will set a plan in motion early in the new year to bring down the Trudeau government. In a news release, the Conservatives said the Public Accounts Committee will meet on January 7th to vote on moving their motion of non-confidence in the Liberal government to the House of Commons as soon as it returns from the winter break. If the motion passes the committee, the Conservatives plan to bring it to the House for a vote as early as January 30th. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly were in Florida on Friday, detailing a border security plan with officials from Donald Trump's incoming administration. In a statement to CTV News, LeBlanc's office said the ministers had a productive and positive meeting with Trump's picks for Commerce Secretary and Interior Secretary. Canada's $1.3 billion border plan comes as Ottawa looks to stave off Trump's threat of tariffs before he takes office in January.
That's absolutely ridiculous that Trudeau sends them down to deal with Trump while he goes skiing in multiple different places in BC.
And let's bring in Scott Reed, our CTV News political commentator. Scott, thanks very much for joining us. For what should normally be a pretty quiet time, it's been a busy time politically. Lots going on. Let's talk first about the meeting yesterday. Your thoughts on it? Did they make progress, do you think?
It sounds like they had some degree of progress. Look, the fact that over the Christmas holiday, they're flying down to Mar-a-Lago or wherever they flew, and they engaged with key cabinet secretaries and officials. These are the two lead people on the border and on the tariffs issue. So that's pretty critical. They received a commitment that the plan on border improvements and infrastructure spending would be taken to President-elect Trump. From my perspective, what's positive about this is, A, they're on the case. They're working on it, and that's on the U.S. side as well. It shows that the government hasn't gone completely into hibernation in the midst of this political crisis that's engulfed the prime minister. So I think that's positive. See Dominic LeBlanc obviously on the job and working hard. That's good. The best case scenario is, my God, this border plan is so impressive, other levels of engagement, they say, all right, we're going to back off some of these tariffs. I'm not sure it's reasonable to expect that. But at minimum, it starts to call the bluff on the U.S. rationale. They've said that their problem is what happens on the border. We all scoff at that and say, well, the numbers don't support it. The facts don't really back that up.
That's not really true. Even though there's more people going in through Mexico, there's 10 times more terror lords coming in from Canada. So the numbers are not quite as cut and dry as one would think. And also the $1.3 billion that Dominic LeBlanc has just stated that Canada is putting towards the border is over 6 years, and no money is accounted for right away. It's onwards and through 6 years. So is that really a big enough investment for Trump right now? I don't know.
But at least by making these improvements, we can now flush them out. If they say thanks very much, but that has no effect on tariffs, then we know that we have a determined president-elect, and that at least positions us a little bit further ahead in terms of our knowledge and insight on the White House.
What kind of an impact does the allegations by India have about the students coming to Canada and then going down to the U.S.?
It's an unhelpful distraction. I don't think that it's much more than that. If Trump wants, of course, he can seize on that and say, see, the northern border is porous for all sorts of reasons. But that's a complicated geopolitical issue because we know that Modi has got his own motives and the Indian government has their own drama going on. And it's not just with Canada that these challenges are occurring with India. They are also with the United States, with Britain and others. So I wouldn't get too distracted by it, but, it's unwelcome.
Okay, let's talk about Gerald Butts and his comments about Trudeau, saying he likely won't run again. Surprised to hear that?
Well, I think Gerald is offering analysis. I don't know that he's claiming that he spoke to the prime minister and the prime minister told him I'm hanging up the cleats. So I take it as the same kind of analysis that most of us are offering. We're looking at the situation objectively and saying it feels unsurvivable. I think, it's a significant thing coming from Jerry. He's known him since McGill days, since they were both in university. He's obviously a former close advisor. It's just another indication of what I think is the obvious and the inevitable, which is that Justin Trudeau will not be prime minister or will not remain in office really through the midpoint of January. I think the writing is on the wall.
It's important to note that that's his wedding party buddy. So if Gerald Butts is saying this, it's probably likely. Because what is he going to go put out random stuff into the media, being Trudeau's buddy? I don't think so. I would suspect that information's probably true, unless he's just trying to stir something up, unless they have some sort of weird, sinister plan going on.
But does this not say something coming from essentially the inner sanctum?
Well, it's a tough read on inner sanctum these days. Look, there's no question that Jerry was among his most and was his absolutely most prized political advisor for many, many years. A lot of bruises and broken bones were left after the Judy Wilson-Raybould affair. Again, I don't know that Jerry is claiming or would assert that he's spoken to the PM and the PM has shared this information with him. I don't think he's sharing an indiscretion. I think he's offering up his opinion. And look, he's in a better position to offer insight than most of us.
Okay. And
well, exactly. He's Justin Trudeau's buddy, wedding party, the whole business. If he's sharing this information that's not true, then it would be to hurt Trudeau. So if there's bad blood there, then maybe he's trying to do that to really stir things up and make him look worse. If Trudeau steps down, then it shows the information is true. And they're talking to each other, and that confirms that information.
one last thing before we go, the non-confidence motion that Conservatives are going to try and bring in again. Where do you think this will go?
Walls, man, walls tumbling in, tumbling down, growing closer. When you start to look through the parliamentary calendar, when you think about things like how you supply government, the boring technical measures that are necessary to finance the operations of government, what that does and how that coincides with the political calendar for the Prime Minister, whether you can prorogue him for how long. If you can't prorogue, how long does the Prime Minister have before he faces a non-confidence vote?
It's funny he mentions finance the government when really we have the CRA basically going to be stealing Canadians' tax dollars with a 66% inclusion rate that isn't put into law. It's just hilarious that he's saying this and like we have this bombshell information coming out. It's just, the whole thing is just insane. I can see the CRA getting absolutely sued beyond belief by Canadians with corporations getting charged a higher tax rate and refusing to pay, or paying and then suing them to get the money back. Like, this is going to cost us more money, probably in lawsuits and legal challenges, whatever, because the CRA is breaking the law here.
Use of a committee that is chaired in the House by the opposition, as the Conservatives are doing. All of these things mean that the end is inching closer. The room for maneuver is being more and more limited. When the Prime Minister returns from his holiday, he's going to have very few options left available to him.
What kind of politician would take holidays when his party and country is falling apart? This just baffles me. It's a guy who's not a leader, an absolute loser. It's Justin Trudeau. Canada's crumbling while Trudeau holidays on our dime. He's taken his victory run. He knows he's done. He just wants to have the security. He wants to jump the lines, take advantage, charge it all back to us. Please report on the CRA's intention to implement new capital gains. It's funny, yeah, the mainstream media is not going to touch that, but you get it here on my channel. What I don't get is how are the Liberals getting 39 seats when have you Canadians not learned your lesson yet? Some areas are just diehard Liberal. They don't care who's in power. They're just going to keep voting that way. The fact that Trump refused to meet with those two lackeys even fleetingly speaks volumes. He doesn't waste his time with them. And really, I think he met with Trudeau just to troll the guy later, to call him the governor, have that picture together, and just troll him over and over. I think that's why he took the meeting. So there you have it. CRA breaking the law. We've got Justin Trudeau out on vacation, sending his lackeys to do his work for him, and telling his buddy Gerald Butts that he's going to be stepping down. Will he prorogate? Will he give the Liberals some time? Will he just call an election? Stick around to find out.